Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square. And joining me as always on Tuesday mornings is Edwin Eisendrath. He hosts It's the Democracy Stupid show right here in Lincoln Square on Fridays. That also happens to be the name of his Substack, which you should subscribe to. And you can hear him over the weekends in Chicago or anywhere online on Heartland Signal for his other radio show, The Big Picture. Edwin, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, Susan, you're welcome. Just on a side note, The Big Picture has been renamed and rebranded. Honestly, it's called It's the Democracy Stupid, because let's just keep it all clear.
Great. Good to know. It's one-stop shopping for everything that Edwin does.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, it's been another week. I guess, why don't we just jump in with Trump's 2025 national security strategy?
Yes, let's.
Late last week. Basically, he is claiming that this is a replication of the Monroe Doctrine, calling for U.S. dominance in the Western Hemisphere. Of course, that happened to be before the U.S. was a superpower. And frankly, the fact that he is so laser focused on just controlling the Western Hemisphere, to me, screams that he has gotten played by Putin and Xi, and just ceded Asia and Europe to them.
Yeah, I have a bunch of thoughts about this document, and I read it twice to be sure I understood it. First, it is dripping with the poison of racism from start to finish. They actually say, look, we signed NATO with a white Europe, and immigration has made it a different country. So maybe we don't need to, maybe that deal doesn't count anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine anything as horrible? It says the era of migration on the planet Earth is over because we need to keep the races in their spheres. It's 1930s level racism, the stuff that destroyed the world 100 years ago, and it's dripping with it in every page. And this focus on Latin America, they mention the Monroe Doctrine, but what the Monroe Doctrine said was there are sovereign countries on this continent, and Europe can't mess with them. We are going to have a more democratic continent, and those foreign powers can't mess with them. What Donald Trump is saying, I'm sorry, we are going to mess with them. They are our sphere of influence, and we're going to start with Venezuela.
Yeah.
Right. So it's an old school imperial racist world where Europe is under the control of Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
Asia is largely left to China, and we take the Americas. By the way, if you were going to pick a region of the world that's going to be valuable to the future, it's actually not Latin America, where the resources and the talent are, is actually Asia.
Right.
So for every reason, this is a self-defeating, stupid, terrible tragedy. And the only hope, what I would tell Europe is what Ambassador McFaul told Europe, which is, don't read too much into it. The guy's at 30%. He won't be here that long. Play the long game. Don't abandon America entirely. But in fact, Europe is I know this because I was there. They're abandoning. They just like, okay, we get it. We can't trust America. I mean, can you believe that Donald Trump really wants to lose Ukraine? He really wants to give it to Russia.
Yeah, he does.
It's just beyond comprehension how terrible this is. And the liars and in the United States Senate, all those Republicans banging the table saying we care about democracy and freedom around the world. We're going to build the strongest defense. Okay, you want $1 trillion for the Defense Department now? For what? Right. To defend whom? If we're not defending democracy and free trade around the world, if we are not representing America's interests around the world, if all we care about is can we attack Venezuela? For God's sake, chop $500 billion out of the defense budget. You don't need it. You're going to give Europe away. You're going to give Asia away. You don't need any of that money.
Yeah. And Republicans don't even care about democracy here in the U.S. as
No.
they've demonstrated. So, I mean, the words are hollow. And I thought that one headline about how Russia, that I think we have this, that Russia is great with this new vision, shockingly. I mean, they are the ones who wrote the 28-point peace plan that we tried to pass off as our own, which called for Ukraine to cede territory to Russia. I mean, we clearly are abandoning our allies. And I think that from what you've told me, from spending time over Thanksgiving abroad, and from what I've been seeing coming out of Europe, it seems that leaders there are coming to grips with the fact that they cannot count on the United States, which is a tragedy, but that is, the reality under Donald Trump. And if they want to secure a just peace for Ukraine, not to mention the fact that making sure that their borders are secure against Russia themselves, they're going to have to take the lead on this, because clearly we can see that Trump is in bed with Putin, and he is not an honest broker here. This document is a pretty big capitulation, I feel like, as far as what we have done over the last century in trying to be the leader of the free world. And that's not to say that the US's history is perfect by any means, but we did try and uphold democratic values, being a moral superpower and now it's just all might equals right.
It isn't a
And
capitulation.
Donald
He
Trump,
switched sides.
yeah,
He said America is now in bed with the fascists. We've switched sides in this. We told, it isn't just that we are walking away from Ukraine. These deals reward Russia. They reward them with billions and billions of dollars in investment. And Russia is a bad actor. Russia's engaged in a not a shooting war with Europe, but they did blow up a shopping mall in Europe. They're constantly engaged in covert actions to undermine the democracies in Europe. Putin is a bad actor around the world, possibly the worst actor in the world. He and the Iranians are right up there together. And Donald Trump says, okay, fine. Oh, and by the way, Iran, we're going to do this week, we're going to fly a plane load of people who you're going to execute from the United States back to Iran. And they did. They took a whole bunch of people who had immigrated to the U.S. and flew them back to Iran, where they will be murdered. Right? This is a terrible man. And his regime, every day he's in power, it is a problem for America. And the stooges in Congress who let him stay there. God help us, I think we will save our democracy, but when we do, there will be retribution. Yeah.
To me, one of the great tragedies of the 2024 election was that you had a lot of people who supported Palestine and who were very critical of the Biden administration's policies. And you saw that Donald Trump made huge inroads with Muslim and Arab voters. And now to see planes full of, Iranian nationals being sent back to their death, and this being the story with what Donald Trump has been doing with his immigration policy, sending people back to countries where oftentimes they've never been, to hostile countries where people fled for the freedom of the United States, and now they're being shipped off there to be tortured and to be killed. I feel like this is a story that is just one of those tragedies that is too terrible to even think very much about, but is a real part of these immigration policies. And we've been seeing these horrific cases where oftentimes U.S. citizens are being accosted. There was a woman in medical scrubs, I think we have this story, who was accosted in the Florida Keys, and she kept screaming, "I'm an American citizen." They didn't care. They threw her to the ground. we're seeing children like that 6-year-old in New York City whose father is a Chinese national. He was separated. We didn't even know where he was for days. And now they're going after the Somali community in Minneapolis because Trump has just decided that because of the tragedy of the National Guardsmen who were killed in Washington, which had nothing to do with the Somali population in Minneapolis, but he just took it upon himself to declare war on them because, you know, we all know this is just gutter racism.
Yeah, the United States Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations released a report, I think this morning. Richard Blumenthal goes through the cases of Americans who have been taken and the treatment that they received and the medicines they were denied. And, you know, it reminds everybody that Justice Kavanaugh said it was okay, but only for a short time, and they've been kept for a long time. I mean, all of it is appalling. And it's a pattern, right? He is militarizing America, taking over institutions. And this week we learned that he's getting in the way of the Netflix, you know, merger because he wants Larry Ellison and, by the way, Jared Kushner, paid for by the Saudis, to end up running CNN. So he's going to step in and abuse again his power of government to try and push that merger. Mm-hmm. Everything about the man is corrupt. Everything about the man is. Now, here's that report from Blumenthal you're showing, and some images. Those are Americans being mistreated that way, you know, by masked, unmarked, illegal sometimes actions by these people acting on behalf of the federal government. It is the document says, there's a line in it that just says, look, the world has been through this history before, and this is a United States Senate document talking about the rise of Nazism and saying that this is what America's looking at. So it's enormously serious, and people have to remember that in the worst moments of World War II, life went on. Life went on. People went to the movies. You know, Paris was a beautiful city through the entire war. And people forget that, you know, normalcy covers a lot of terrible things, right? So while we're getting on with our lives, and hopefully people will get time with their families in the holidays and things will be great, Donald Trump is further eroding the institutions of democracy, further wrapping his arms around the media and getting them to submit to him. You know, we had another university fall. I mean, it's just so dangerous, Susan, as we come to the end of this year. And yet the pushback is also bigger than it's ever been.
It is. I remember that there was this quaint debate during Trump's first term, and it even, you know, has persisted throughout his second term. Is Donald Trump really racist? Are these policies really racist? I mean, right.
Yes.
How is this even a debate? I mean,
and they hate women. Yes, all the above.
Right.
All the above, right? You know, and they change the subject so often. You know, we Democrats, we don't stay with one subject. For example, he can release the Epstein files. He always could have released them, right? But he went ahead with a stage show of signing a law demanding they be released. And do we have them? No, right? No. I mean, and he's going to keep hiding them, and we're going to make sure maybe we never get them, or they're being redacted as we speak, you know. But I mean, let's hold him accountable for some things. Like, you know, I mean, is he a child molester? Is he a rapist? Our president? He, you know, put the documents out there. Right. But he won't do it. He won't do it. He's hiding from people on that. He's hiding from people on, you know, and changing the subject while he's trying to grab CNN. He's trying to hurt people in Minneapolis because he knows those of us who have a heart are worried about the people he's trying to hurt.
Yes.
Right.
To me, this debate over if he's racist or not has always been frankly dumb. I mean, it's obvious, but this goes beyond just his personal opinions or what Stephen Miller personally believes. They have the machinery of the US government. They have a private police force in ICE that is only going to get slathered with more money once the next budget goes into effect. Not to mention all the other institutions, that make up our border patrol. They can enforce these extremely racist and violent policies, and they are, and we're seeing it in real time. And that's the difference between, the president made a racist joke, and the president is making policy based on the fact that he doesn't believe that certain people should exist or not here at least. That's quite different.
And let's be clear about I was gonna say, look at his administration, right? Whitest administration in decades and the least competent. So let's just be clear. When he talks about excellence, you cannot have an excellent administration or an excellent business or anything if you just decide that a whole chunk of talent in America is irrelevant and you won't hire them. So he has an incompetent, terrible administration led by some of the worst people in the country. No one to admire in that administration, really no one. Pete Hegseth is a clear and present danger to America in charge of our Defense Department. Kristi Noem, they're going to fire her because she hasn't been cruel enough, and she's been plenty cruel.
But they want a
foreign policy team running around the world, enriching themselves and the president. Their view of foreign policy is, how can we line our own pockets? I mean, there's just nothing good about these guys, and this sticky 30% of America who buys into this. I can't understand it. I mean, maybe they don't know what's going on. Maybe they are so buried in the propaganda that they don't see it, or maybe they just hate everybody that much. But this man is going to destroy our country and chunks of the world. I mean, these are like the most dangerous people, Susan, the most dangerous people.
I think what Donald Trump has effectively been able to do is give that 30% of the country an identity that they wanted. It's not an identity that I think a lot of us thought that 30% of the country wanted at least 10 years ago, but clearly they do. They identify as people who are white. They think they're superior to everyone else. This is like if you see them, they're the ones who buy all the MAGA hats. They're the ones that put Trump's face all over everything. To them, this defines who they are. They are part of some sort of an in-group. And it's a powerful emotion, I think, that he has managed to tap into. And I think a lot of us were hoping that this was a much smaller minority of the country than it turned out to be. But they still are a minority in this country. And that drives them as well, because they know that most people don't agree with them. But they have the leader of the free world, or at least of the Western Hemisphere, who is telling them their ideas are fine. They don't have to change with a changing world. They should be rewarded just because of the color of their skin for being white, or whatever they aspire to be.
I guess. But of course, they're not being rewarded because he's lying to them and lying his own pockets at their expense. Most of them
are not benefiting under the Trump economy.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why he came out again saying, we have to go give farmers a bailout again. I mean, you would think for someone who is supposedly an expert in terms of economic matters and the art of the deal would understand, this would send the message. Again, for both his first administration and the second, his economic policies are such a disaster that he has to bail people out. But I mean, Trump has lived by bailouts. That's the only reason why he's still.
But I have farmers in the family. I know they do not want a bailout. This isn't. No. I mean, they'll take it, I guess, because they've been so badly hurt. But they're proud, hardworking people who do not want to live on the government dole. That's just not in their DNA, and they're not going to want to do it. And I might add, a lot of them have spent many years complaining about government bailouts of other people. So the shoe's on that foot now, and I don't like it. And there's something else we haven't talked about that's related to all of this that's going on, and that is one of the villains of the moment we live in is John Roberts. And right now, the Supreme Court is handing, I mean, they may this week say the tariffs are illegal. That they might do. But at the same time, they're giving him more control over the federal government. They have this idea, which in the 1980s was insane, of the unitary executive, that the entire executive branch is just a monarchy. The king is the king, and everybody works for the king. That's not how we've built our government. That's not been in our DNA, but it's been
your 7th grade social studies class. If that was, the answer you gave in your essay question, there's a system of checks and balances. It's very well established and clear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not saying that Congress doesn't exist, but they're saying the entire executive branch is entirely and absolutely under the control of the president. So no unions, no, everybody's an employee. You can have a patronage army 1,000,000 miles long. There shouldn't be any civil service. Forget independent boards and commissions. Everything should be the politics of the boss. So hire all your friends, pardon all your crooks, put them in the government. I mean, and we haven't even talked about the abuse of the pardon power. Like there's nothing this man touches that isn't poisoned by him.
We fought a war for this. This is why we have
more than one.
Right, but the founding of our country is to get away from King George and the monarchy, and yet you have this ultra-right Supreme Court that has done everything within its power to make Donald Trump a king, starting with their 2024 decision in the summer saying that he is immune.
Yeah. Well, if we ever get rid of him, and I believe we will, and I believe we will take it back, before we go back and undo the immunity of the president, a Democratic president who's above the law has some things he should do. I have a whole list for him.
Call Edwin. He can give you great advice. But seriously, I agree. And Stuart Stevens has a great column that's out today. I would encourage everyone to read it. It's right here in Lincoln Square about what comes after Donald Trump and what justice would look like. And to me, that is one of the failures of what we did after Trump was president the first time, because he was guilty of corruption then. He should have been prosecuted for any number of criminal cases. The justice system moved way too slow. He was able to pardon all the J6ers, and that is not a mistake we can afford to make if we ever want to fully move on as a country.
Oh, we have an enormous amount of healing to do, and that healing does not begin when we win, with us saying all is forgiven, we are back, and you guys get to come back in and continue your mischief. It begins with recognizing the truth of what has happened and saying it cannot happen again. You are welcome back, but you are not welcome back on the same terms. You cannot come back here and protect gerrymandering. You cannot come back here and protect efforts to limit voting. You cannot come back here and continue to say that one race should dominate over another in America. That's not who we are, and we will not form our union again on those terms.
Yeah. And I mean, let's be clear. The policies that Donald Trump's administration, that Stephen Miller is enacting through DHS, through ICE, it is a policy of ethnic cleansing. He's made that very explicit. And the fact that we are going back to that dark time when we have seen where this road leads back in the 1930s, it is abominable. It is unforgivable. And the architects of these plans have to be held accountable, because we need to send the message, not just to those of us in this country, but to the world, that this is not who we are. And there will be accountability.
There will be accountability. I mean, look, this isn't. I saw somebody calculate how many people they've already killed. Partly through their foreign policy decisions, the ending of aid around the world, and then of course there's the wanton killing of people in the Caribbean just because.
87.
This is a cult of death. We have power, and power is coercive power. That's what they understand, coercive power. Donald Trump's a genius at coercion, right? He looks for his edge, and when he's got it, he uses it. And he's figured out he can use tariffs to enrich himself. He's figured out he can use the power of government to approve mergers to enrich himself and to build a stronger political operation. He's figured he can use the research of the federal government to cure cancer in order to gain control over universities. I mean, everything he touches is corrupt and corrupting. And I am I'm so thrilled with what I saw in my city when ICE came here, and I see it in North Carolina, and I see it now in Minnesota, and
New Orleans.
Yep, in New Orleans. And I've heard it from farmers around the country. And I should note, for the first time ever in this upcoming election, something that just really has not happened in I don't know if it's ever, but certainly not in the last 20 years. A Democrat has filed for every open spot in the election in Texas. Every state rep seat, every state senate seat, every school board seat. That hasn't happened forever. That means we are bringing the argument. We're giving people choices where they haven't had them. We're asking people for their votes in towns where we haven't asked before. And you know what? This is going to cut their margins, because people when they lie as they lie, we're going to hear somebody say, yeah, that's not right. I know better. Yeah. And it's going to matter.
Yeah. Showing up everywhere sends a powerful message. And I know our mutual friend, David Pepper, who's out in Ohio, he's been beating this drum for years. And it's heartening to see that people are finally waking up to that, and that people want to run. They want to represent people who, let's face it, have not had a whole lot of representation for a long time. And I think that is a more powerful story than we think, and definitely something for us to watch next year with the midterms.
Yeah, people who love this country and the polls are clear. Most people think we're moving in the wrong direction.
Yes.
Thank God they see what you and I see. We're moving in the wrong direction, and they want to fix it. They're good people all over this country, and they are standing up. And I'm excited about that. We have to protect our elections. They're going after mail-in ballots, right? If you are in a community that ICE is going to be surrounding a polling place and that worries you, you might not come out to vote. That's why mail-in voting is so important. Keeps you from getting arrested when you go show up to vote. We're going to have to find strategies to work around the attack that's coming.
Right. I wanted to ask you, Edwin, we were talking a little bit ago about the boat strikes in the Caribbean, and we have members of Congress have seen the footage of one of those strikes, and have just come away completely shaken by what they've seen. We have Donald Trump shooting his mouth off, saying, "Yes, I'll release the video. Hegseth is hedging." I'm wondering what you think. Are we finally going to see some accountability here from Republicans in Congress? Because you've got Senator Roger Wicker, Representative Adam Smith are talking about withholding travel funds, which we know is very important to this administration, because they love a good time and they love to travel on taxpayers' money. If we don't see this release, do you think this is just a threat, or we might actually see some follow through?
I'm in they don't get the benefit of the doubt until they show me, right? Mm-hmm. They just don't. I mean, where are the Epstein files? They voted for that. We don't have them. Where's the control of the money, for gosh sakes, that the Congress voted for, that the president either, impounds or spends when he doesn't have the authority to spend? Until the Republicans in Congress show me that they actually mean it, and maybe they do in defense, because they have ties to the Defense Department inside, to the brass and to others who are there. So maybe this is where they'll draw the line, maybe, but they haven't drawn it yet anywhere. So, come on, guys, you're welcome aboard. If you do it, you'll get plenty of praise from people like me. But talking about it isn't the same thing as doing it.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's a positive sign that at least they're willing to make some statements bucking the administration, but talk is cheap, as we've seen over and over again.
And, it's hard to know what the talk is about, really. They're not talking about other things. They pick this one. Hegseth is just so terrible. I mean, if you get rid of Hegseth, though, that's a good sign, but it isn't enough for what this administration is doing. I mean, maybe it means that they will draw the line on ordering troops into our cities, which Hegseth is eager to do. But who knows? Until they actually stand up and show that they care about America more than they care about Donald Trump, they don't deserve any credit. They've saved him twice from impeachment when he should have been impeached. They have ducked every bit of oversight responsibility for the most corrupt administration in our nation's history. So, and now they're saying, oh, well, maybe we should, maybe it's not a good idea to murder people on the high seas. Okay, great. It's not a good idea to kidnap Americans off the streets of our cities either. So when are you standing up for that? I mean, no, sorry. Good for you. Raise your hand. Now do something.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll see if Democrats take back the U.S. House next year. How many people will be voting for a third Trump impeachment? That's when the rubber.
Everybody on day one. I mean, they don't even need to have a hearing.
Like Republicans.
Yeah. You'll go. I wonder if the Senate will defend him a third time.
Yeah.
I mean,
is this, Mitch McConnell is on his way out. Does he want a third Trump impeachment blown? And I know he's not in charge anymore, but you can tell that he is a man who is haunted. There are a lot of people who know better. This is another shot for people to do the right thing. And I know trying to place your faith in Republicans is a folly. But at some point, when the man is in the 30s for his approval rating, how much more do you want to tie the fate of your party to this man?
Well, this is a really important question. He's not in the 30s in the primary voters in most of those, right? So they're worried about their primaries, and that's because of gerrymandering for most of them. They built districts around his base, and that's a powerful thing. They will lose in general elections, but I think they'd rather lose in a general election than in a primary.
Right.
But they're convincing themselves somehow that they're better people than the ones who are attacking them from the right, and that's a bunch of nonsense. They are who they are. They should stand up and say it's time to do the right thing in America. But they won't, and they haven't. And the country's worse for it. It's been an utter failure of a major political party.
Well, it's hard to find examples of good news lately, but I think it's always good for us to seize on whatever there is. And we saw that one of Trump's extremely unqualified appointees, Alina Habba, whose claim to fame was being a parking lot lawyer and being a Trump lawyer. She, after the Justice Department lost a series of court battles, she has resigned as New Jersey prosecutor. I'm sure this is not the last that we will see of her, but
no, she's been rehired, Susan.
She has.
She's now first off, she didn't resign. They say she resigned, but note that she was told by the courts she's occupying the job illegally.
Right.
Right. So I don't know how she resigns from a job she doesn't actually have.
Well, this is true.
Right. But she's been hired as a special advisor to Pam Bondi because she's so competent. Right. She couldn't get an indictment. Right. And she screwed up the ones that she was in charge of. Right. She doesn't know the law. She has no experience that matters. So she's a senior advisor to our attorney general. Go figure.
Excellent. And I completely missed that because of the pace of things. But that's great that you can continue to fail upward in the Trump.
That's the role of this administration, right?
Yeah.
So look, I think there's a lot of good news, Susan. There's all over the country. I mean, there's a reason why the man's poll numbers are terrible. And, I mean, whether he's bailing out farmers who don't want to bail out, when he's possibly going to lose this tariff argument in the courts, and I don't, with all the control of the government, I don't know what he does about that. He'll have to pay back billions and billions of dollars. It's an enormous problem for America. The country's going to have to raise taxes on the wealthy to fund it, and he's not going to do that. It's a doom cycle for him. It's bad for the rest of us. And look at the man; he can't cope anymore. I mean, his late night rants are insane, and he's sleeping through his meetings in the day. I mean, Droopy Don is going to start to be like we're going to sell Droopy Don dolls at Christmas time now. It's just it's terrible to think like this, but this is actually good news for us. He's fading, he's going away, and oh yeah, and then there was this, right? He took over the Kennedy Center and he played MC. I understand he didn't do terribly, but arts and culture are a big part of America, and he, like everything else he touches, just junk.
I think this is really the secret to who Donald Trump really is. I mean, he has always wanted to be at the center of the cultural zeitgeist. He has wanted to be cool. He has wanted to be embraced by these people so much that he has to take over the Kennedy Center and be a host. And all he wanted for his first inauguration was Elton John to play and for Hollywood to say, "You belong. We love The Apprentice. You're one of us." And so, this was kind of the pinnacle probably of Donald Trump's year that he was able to host. And for, Doug Burgum, the Secretary of the Interior, to praise him. He's the most qualified TV host we've ever had in the Oval Office. Great compliment. I don't know, Sam,
I think Ronald Reagan was better, but okay.
Yeah. I would think so. I mean, he was a legitimate actor.
Yep.
Sam, do we have any footage of Trump's performance?
Susan, while you're looking for that, I agree with you. He's always wanted to be loved by them. The people he's never cared about being loved by are ordinary Americans.
No.
He does not regular people are like to him fools. You're a chump. You didn't figure out where your edge is. And that for ordinary, decent Americans to be treated this way by a guy who just wants to be around the wealthy and the famous, it's disgusting. And Americans feel that way.
Yeah. I mean, meanwhile, he's not releasing any data on jobs or on inflation because God forbid people be told the truth.
Or on healthcare now that Bobby Kennedy's killing people.
Right. And of course, everybody can't afford their health care, especially come next year when all of the rate hikes go into effect. But he's yucking it up with people on the red carpet. Apparently, it was a lot less star-studded than it's been in the past. But, people are out there in their finery, and those are really his people. And at some point, I hope that this disconnect becomes clear to some of his supporters because, it may feel really good to hate other people and to have somebody in the Oval Office who's telling you, that's great, you're right on track. But at the end of the day, your landlord is not going to take hate for your rent check.
That's true. I mean, look, we know, I expect for the next few months to see an entire rebranding of the administration. Suddenly they're going to care about what things are cost you, and they're going to pretend that they care about it. But it's too late. Their policies have raised prices on everyone, and there's nothing they can do about it unless they rescind the big beautiful bill and pass tax cuts on the wealthy and start to rebuild American infrastructure. What they've done is enormously damaging, and they can rebrand all they want and they can own most of the media, but we still are a free enough country so you and I can tell the truth and other people can get out there and do this, and we are. And it's weird that it's alternative media that's getting the word out to people, and it is getting the word out. I mean, they controlled everything, and in every city where ISIS come, people have figured out how to warn each other and have learned what's going on. We're a pretty smart and resourceful people. We're not going to be fooled.
Well, Donald Trump can claim that affordability is a Democrat scam, but at the end of the day, we all know what we can afford. We know that when we go to the grocery store, that it's costing us a lot more than it did a year ago, even under sleepy Joe Biden. All of his promises have turned out to be complete crap.
Maybe I'll open a discount store in the Gold Ballroom. Mental disconnect.
He already has a merch store in the Oval Office, which is just disgusting. And again, grounds for prosecution at some point.
Yeah.
Charming,
but we're fighting back across the country. To the extent that we protect our elections, we will be done with this. We'll get back Congress. We might even, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but we might even win the Senate, which seems like has always seemed impossible to me, but his numbers keep shrinking, and Americans do not want to give him carte blanche anymore. So we'll see.
But something for us to be hopeful for in the new year.
J.D. Vance might even campaign for a few senators on the Democratic side so that when we get to that impeachment vote, he can get his moment.
Right.
They're just such snakes, Susan. They're just such terrible people.
And nobody trusts each other. And, you're going to see that the long knives are going to be out for people. And it will be interesting because I think you're already seeing the machinations of people who are preparing for a post-Trump era, because it's coming one way or another. We don't know when, but it is coming. And, J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller and Susie Wiles, they all want to make sure that their own power is secure. Yeah. And in the end, their loyalty is going to be to themselves, not to Donald Trump.
No, well, he'll be off the stage. And I this hardcore group that they've got, I've told you who I think they're going to pick as their nominee, haven't I?
I don't think we've talked about this.
Greg Bovino. They want a man who has been on the streets throwing tear gas at the people they hate. They want the guy who dresses like a Nazi stormtrooper and has been taking it to people like us. They're not going to go Washington fool like J.D. Vance. Nobody likes him. And Marco Rubio, are you kidding me? So they're going to go for somebody who's actually fought the war against you and me. That's who they are. And he will lose 50 states.
That's fascinating because, the old, conventional wisdom has been the tallest person in the race always wins, which would automatically put a woman running for president at a disadvantage, except if you're running against Greg Bovino, because he's reportedly only 5'2". Yeah.
But he dresses like a Dalek.
And I think he sports the same kind of heels that, the governor of Florida does as well.
Yeah.
Well, good times. Edwin, you'll be back on Friday. Who do you have joining you this week?
I don't remember. Oh my gosh. I've been so many conversations this week. I don't remember.
Edwin is between your personal Substack and your radio show and your show for us. I know you talk to so many people a week, but we'll be back to let you know about Edwin's show later on this week.
I promise it'll be good. I just got,
I know coming up you'll have Norm Eisen. I know we're just talking about Juliet Jeske. Okay, thank you, Sam.
Right.
Decoding Fox News. You've probably read her Substack. She watches Fox News because the rest of us would go crazy if we did it all the time. That should be a great conversation.
That'll be fun. That'll be really fun.
Yeah. Well, great, Edwin.
Thank you, Susan.
I can't wait to talk to you next week. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today.